Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, The 5 Keys to Improving Hotel Operations. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to be discussing how to enhance hotel management in the eyes of your hotel guests. So a few housekeeping details to start out with. Today's webinar is currently being recorded, and we will go ahead and send this out to all registrants within the next 24 hours. Additionally, we will be presenting today about 30 minutes of content, and we will leave time right after that to answer some questions from our audience. So please feel free to use the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel to type in your questions throughout the presentation as they come to you, and we'll address all of those at the very end. So by way of introduction, it's nice to meet you all. My name is Valerie Castillo, and I am the head of marketing at TrustYou, the world's largest guest feedback platform. I have over 8 years of experience in marketing, primarily with hospitality software products like TrustYou's. And within my current team, I'm leading our strategy to better inform and educate hoteliers in the industry. So I'm very excited to be hosting this webinar today. Also with our friends at StayNTouch. So today I'm accompanied by Hyatt, and he will go ahead and introduce himself real quick.
Hi, good morning or afternoon to everybody joining us today. We're happy to have you here. My name is Hyatt Adhunam, Sales Director here at StayNTouch. I've been here for about 2 years. I've been in the cloud and SaaS industry for about 9. And StayNTouch is a cloud and mobile-based property management system that's built around mobility, built around the guest experience, and built around, cohesion with other systems, like TrustYou and like a lot of the other ones out there. So we're excited to talk to you today and share with you some ideas, some tips, and looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Hyatt. So let's get right into it. Why are we all here today? We're here because guests are important to hotels and experiences are important to guests. And to help illustrate this point, I wanted to include this visual here of the guest journey. So there are 3 key phases of this journey that we've identified. First, the search and booking phase, where the traveler really becomes the guest by first finding and then eventually booking your hotel. And then next is the on-site experience. And this is where the guest opinion of your hotel really starts to develop, which then feeds into the 3rd phase where they leave post-stay feedback, positive or otherwise, depending on that experience that they had. So this feedback is then seen by travelers looking to book your hotel, bringing it back to the very beginning of the guest journey. So you can see why this 2nd phase is particularly important, as it directly impacts the future bookings of travelers at your hotel. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of time today, is with this on-site guest experience and figuring out how we can improve your hotel operations in the eyes of your guests in order to get the best possible outcome. So we've condensed these tips into what we call the 5 keys to improving hotel operations. And here they are. So in today's session, I will review with you the first 2 tips, which are to open lines of communication with guests to improve your own efficiency, and using guest feedback insights to inform internal operational adjustments. Then we'll go ahead and hand it over to Hyatt, who will uncover the next 2 points, which is to connect your entire hotel staff with increased mobile touch points, and also auto-assigning tasks across departments in order to be able to turn over rooms quicker. And finally, together, we'll be talking about how integrating your hotel tech can help you manage and utilize important guest data, which can also improve the guest's own experience. So jumping right into the first key, let's discuss how you can open lines of communication with guests and improve efficiency at the same time. So to start this topic, let's first focus on how guests like to communicate with hotels. So in a recent study we put out in the middle of last year, in 2017, we found via consumer research that the top methods that guests preferred to use when engaging with a hotel were email, with the vast majority of 76%, a hotel's website, so either chatting or using some sort of form on the website to get in contact with them, and then also text messaging. And this isn't surprising because we also found that 73% of all conversations between guests and hotels happened over digital channels like email, text messaging on the website, or even social media. And this is also really the preferred method by the guests, with 68% of respondents outright stating that they prefer written electronic communication over phone calls, mediators, or other in-person interactions that they might have to have. So when it comes down to it, hotels and providers of these services need to be able to engage with guests when they have additional questions and when they want to get in contact with you throughout the, really before they come on site, and primarily during the on-site experience as well. So with all the options that guests have available, it's difficult to be able to communicate with all of them via these channels if they're all scattered and they're not all together. So utilizing multi-channel communication is really where hotels can win, both from a guest and a staff perspective. So with a guest messaging platform that integrates all of these channels into one, you can engage with guests via all of these channels, keep them informed, manage guest expectations, and even offer upgrades, getting you that additional revenue. The best part is that all of the responses and conversations via any of the channels that you're using can be combined into one inbox, one view. So if a guest is texting prior to a check-in, then asking questions in their room via an Alexa device that you might be putting in there, and finally, maybe they're submitting some feedback via a web chat, that entire conversation is saved in one place, and it's not difficult to track as it's just one login that you're seeing. So let's see some examples of how that might work and how we can utilize guest messaging that benefits, again, both the guest and the hotel to improve your own operations. So painting a picture here as to how you can use guest messaging to operate your hotel in a more optimal way, consider first these two use cases. So in the first example, you see that guest messaging platforms also enable internal staff conversations and assignments, which helps to ensure that the requests are tracked and followed up on in an efficient manner. So you see here that, as you're talking to a guest on site, you can also include the relevant departments and include messages to them as well. So there's an obvious benefit here for the guest. Additionally, guest messaging platforms enable automated outreaches. So if there's an issue, your hotel doesn't have to react in 100 different ways with 100 different requests, maybe in person or online or whatever it might be. You can get out that message to all of your guests via this channel, and primarily through text messaging. If you're getting a text message alert, you're definitely going to be checking that, whereas your email you might only check every so often. So this is a great service for hotels when you're really trying to increase your efficiency on site. So including a few more use cases, when you order food through any other app, whether you use Seamless or Eats or Uber Eats, the thing that keeps you sane is really the constant updates that you get. You know exactly when your order is going to arrive, and therefore you don't bother customer service in between to try to provide this info for you. So guest messaging can also help work in the same way. And even further, these methods can help increase revenues at your property. So you see in the second example, promoting spa appointments, room service, and additional hotel offerings. All of these things can be booked via messaging and create a stronger response rate. So this really does help bridge the gap between your staff and guests, which is the biggest part about increasing and improving your operations on site, and making sure that the guest has a very pleasing stay on property. And once you're able to create these wonderful experiences, it's important that you track what feedback your guests have regarding new communication channels or new processes that you've put in place. So that segues into our second key, which is using guest feedback insights to inform internal operations. So let's get into that a little bit further. So I briefly touched here on the importance of collecting feedback, but why is that? So you see here that according to our data, although there are other online sites and providers collecting these reviews, nearly half, this 44% of hotels' reviews are collected on their own. And so that means if you're not proactively collecting feedback via your own guest survey, you're missing out. You could be getting twice as many reviews overall. And this can really provide rich insights for you and even potentially increase your hotel score. So what kind of insights, are we able to get here? So you see here that when hotels collect their owner reviews, it really is a positive thing. When a hotel proactively asks for a review, guests are 3.6 times as likely to provide one. So additionally, these types of reviews that the hotels are proactively soliciting tend to be more positive, with 95% of these reviews being 4 or 5-star reviews, whereas overall, across all channels, it's more like 85% of reviews are positive. So hotels should definitely not be nervous about collecting feedback. They should see the opportunity in it. And what exactly is that opportunity? So when hotels collect feedback, they also have to dig a bit deeper to get insights that they were looking for. So in a 2016 study done by Cornell's Hospitality Research Division, they found that text analytics, often found within reputation management softwares, give hotel managers information about guest experiences that are not available by the numerical rating alone. So yes, a 5-star review is great, but what about that stay was great? It's important to know that if you are making positive changes at your hotel and these changes are being noticed and acknowledged, you want to see that in the reviews that you get. And that's what reputation management can really assist with. So what operational changes does your hotel need to make, and how could that impact your score in a positive way? It can also alternatively tell you, if you do not make adjustments to something, how will that impact you in a negative way? So it's really getting ahead of the curve. And at the beginning of this year, there was lots of trend reports. I think everyone published a series of trends, and there were a few common themes. I want to highlight this one that T News published, which was the 5 trends in hospitality to keep an eye on in 2018. And one of the biggest ones was the quality of staff interaction in hotels. So all hotels, no matter how well rated they are, definitely needed to review their workflows and ensure that their initiatives are the best ones for their guests. So this is really the perfect segue now into what Hyatt will be discussing, how hotels can utilize their PMS to improve these workflows and create better on-site experiences. So I will now turn it over to Hyatt.
Thank you. Yes. I think that everything we're talking about today is really complementary. It's part of the kind of entire ecosystem of guest communications, right? And you want to have a multifaceted approach, right? Especially for the modern guest, and kind of where they're evolving to in terms of being on demand, being text-based, being email-based. Really expanding the reach of the property when it comes to the digital guest journey, right? So there's a lot of tangible evidence out there that this is something that has to be really accounted for, that a hotelier now that is not really providing that type of mobile touch point, or those multifaceted mobile touch points, is really doing a disservice to their guest experience, and also to their ability to capture more information. So there's a lot of ways in which mobility and providing your hotel staff with mobile devices and really, optimizing their experience when it comes to their communication can impact the overall guest experience. So if we think about connecting your staff and improving on the guest experience, right, and what that really means to, to the guest, right? So when you have a guest, if we go to the next slide here, when we have a guest that is, en route to the hotel and is, maybe taking a flight, or maybe they're on vacation, they're traveling for business, whatever. There's a lot going on at the actual hotel, right? During that pre-arrival stay for the guest journey, or pre-arrival part of the guest journey. So what we're trying to do here at StayNTouch is really provide cohesion, on the front of the house and the back of the house, so that in turn will allow you as a hotelier to drive more proactive service to the guests, so that before they arrive, you can know what rooms are in queue. You can update rooms via mobile devices using mobile housekeeping, which is something StayNTouch does. And then in turn, since, with StayNTouch, you have the ability to engage via mobile check-in or even text messaging through a system like TrustYou, you can notify the guests real time, when that room is ready, when upgrades are available in the inventory, amenities, all that stuff. So you're giving the guests more ownership, right? You're giving them more control over their experience, more information to personalize their experience and, really provide a more complete guest journey to the guest. So that's really the thinking. That's the philosophy that we have when we're talking about mobility, when we're talking about the mobile guest, and also the mobile staff, right? And really empowering and enabling the staff to be more connected, allowing for a more connected guest to the hotel. And, if we think about being able to address that on-demand guest anywhere, anytime, having a cloud-based system is crucial, right? You want to be able to see reviews as they come in. You want to be able to see requests as they come in. And that's a big part of our system, StayNTouch, and how we've designed it to be very proactive, something where you can see when a guest has a request, you can address that request before they arrive, either via email or if you're texting with them back and forth, like a system that TrustYou provides. So it gives you a more complete picture of what's going on instead of being reactive, right? And that's really in this, I always say the on-demand culture that we're in, seconds matter, right? If you think about reviews that you see on TripAdvisor, the reviews that you see on social media, it's a matter of seconds that can really shift the guest experience. And so you want to be in front of the guests in as many ways as possible, not just physically, but also virtually, right? Having that that ability to stay in front of them, whatever they need, whatever their requests are. If there is an issue that arises, that you're able to address that via text or just see that email request come in, and just have kind of a process built around that, and that will ensure that you have that coverage on the guests, and you don't allow them to get to that point where they're irate or they're confused or whatever. So just giving you guys more of a complete approach to the communication is something that's going to impact those guest service scores in the long run as well. And in turn, you can also, let's say someone comes in and someone comes into the hotel, they want an adjustment on the rate, or you want to give them a promotion. Having a cloud-based system or a tablet-based system, you can walk with them to the to the bar, to the coffee shop, to the restaurant, make that adjustment to the rate, or you can even do it remotely. If someone, one of the front desk people calls you and wants to ask you about making an adjustment, having that on-demand access or having that cloud-based access is going to give you more flexibility and allow you to be more nimble as a hotel, and then also more nimble from a guest-facing side and a service side for the guest. And so drilling down to the layers of the guest experience on the back end, kind of behind the scenes, when someone calls in or texts you, for example, saying, hey, there's something wrong with the curtains, there's something wrong with the AC, having systems in place that allow for automation around that, kind of delegating out those tasks, delegating out those requests. So that's a big part of kind of what goes on behind the scenes, from a housekeeping side, from a maintenance side. So really looking at your complete picture and going through, the scenarios that you can expect, when people make requests, and having a system that's ready to allow for real-time updates, allow for you guys to triage, or allow for a hotel to triage the different requests that come through per department, whether it's IT, whether it's accounting, whether it's housekeeping, and having a process around that. So the more streamlined you are with that, the stronger you are with that, the more effect you'll see from a guest standpoint when you're able to address their requests quicker and more efficiently. So we go to the next slide and we think about, just some of the things that you're doing on a daily basis, night audits, end of day, looking at the next couple of days when you're looking at occupancy, when you're looking at your rates, updating inventories, things like that. Again, being able to do that anywhere on a tablet, on anywhere in the world, right? Even if you're on vacation or if you're at a conference, what have you, having that that automation, that access point to make those updates real time, and then in turn giving a clear picture to your staff on what's available in the hotel when it comes to rates, when it comes to inventory, when it comes to your processes. So you're creating connectivity on the back end, which again is going to drive that service for the guests. You know what you can offer to the guests. You know what kind of upgrades, what kind of inventory you're going to be able to provide due to that connectivity, and then from there, the guest is going to have a clearer picture of what they can, what their experience can be at the hotel. And then so turning rooms again, I think we've referred to this part of the PMS as kind of the running back. You need a strong running game, part of any offense, right? That's been successful, and so this is a key part. Not the most glamorous part, but it is something that is going to drive, service. It is going to drive automation for the guests. So the way it works with StayNTouch, and the way, if we're envisioning it, in a storyboard kind of way, when a guest is going through the mobile check-in process, right, and they indicate, hey, I'm arriving at, 11 a.m., for example, and they indicate that during the mobile check-in, and then they're able to, on the housekeeping side, see a list of all of those times that guests are indicating that they're going to be arriving. So in the morning, in the afternoon, they're also able to see when guests are checking out, so they can prioritize, and it makes you a little bit more dynamic when it comes to saying, okay, we have a guest coming in at 11. We're going to prioritize that room for the mobile housekeeping component, and we're going to have that housekeeper be able to update the room status real time via their device. And then in turn, you can text, you can email the guests when their room is ready. So you're elevating that service level. You're giving them that real-time update. And again, it's all about seconds. It's about moments in terms of what can change someone's opinion, what can change someone's impression. So having the tools in place to really do that and to drive that type of experience, again, it seems intangible, but it leads to tangible results when it comes to service scores, when it comes to experience.
All right, thanks so much, Hyatt. So the last key that we wanted to talk about was integrating hotel technologies. So you did such a good job of letting us know how technology can help you run things better on site. But if you have multiple hotel technologies, as most hotels do, how do you make sure that you're utilizing them, I think, in the best way possible or the most efficient way? And that's really by connecting them. So we're very happy that our cloud-based solutions with StayNTouch and TrustYou are connected. And what this means is that in all of those examples that I was giving about the guest messaging, and if you're getting messages from your chat or the text messaging that you've enabled through TrustYou, or even just via email, that you're getting all of that information next to a very rich guest profile. And that's obviously what PMSs typically provide. So the PMS has all of the guest data, when they booked, who they are, and if they're part of your loyalty program or not. And so when you're responding to the guest, you can really be personalized with this when you have all of that information directly in the system. So I think that's probably the biggest benefit of the systems being integrated. Hyatt, do you have anything to add to that point?
Most definitely. I mean, I think, like you said, it's something where all data matters in terms of getting to know the guests and know what they like, and being able to preempt the communication. If they like a glass of frosé, which is, by the way, is frozen rosé. I just learned about that recently. It's something where you can actually preempt that and have that waiting for them, and you can gather that information through multiple touch points, right? So you can, if you're texting with them at any point throughout any of their stays, that's an opportunity to get to know the guests more, and having kind of like a framework of, okay, this is what we want to know from the guests when we're texting with them or when they're doing the mobile check-in, capturing that data and creating that rich profile data. We actually did a session with one of the bigger CRM providers in the industry that talked about that rich profile data and the fact that you have a lot of opportunities that are kind of innocuous to really capture that information and build that rich profile so that you can have a more concise communication with that guest. So part of that is integrations, right? So having a system like TrustYou that's integrated from a texting standpoint to StayNTouch, where we can initiate that communication, that's crucial as well. So you have that that point in which when the guest is going through mobile check-in, or you want to initiate that communication, it's automated. You can have that sent out and then begin those communications. But just on the entire holistic ecosystem, that's what all this, you know, I mean, all these pieces add up to, you know, kind of having that cohesion, having that connectivity amongst, you know, a system like TrustYou, capturing that, and then, you know, kind of disaggregating that information and creating a process around post-stay marketing based on reviews that you get, based on some of the profile data you have in StayNTouch, based on some of the CRS data that's coming in, RMS data. I mean, so you have the ability to create a very complete equation of communication based on this data that you're acquiring through all these interconnected systems that StayNTouch and TrustYou, you know, connect to. So it's a long way of saying, you know, there's a lot of opportunity when you have really a truly connected ecosystem, and you have a plan too of what kind of information you want to capture and what's the actionable next step, you know, with that kind of data to ensure that you're staying in front of that guest as much as possible when they're on property, and even after they leave from a, you know, from a life cycle marketing standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And you have to be careful about what you ask your guests to make sure that you're getting the right information right from the booking standpoint. So, you know, really from your booking engine to your PMS to whatever other hotel technology you use on site or otherwise, it's definitely important to have that connection. And I will definitely make a note to my next hotel booking that I prefer frosé over any other kind of beverage. I've known about that for a while living in San Diego, and it's definitely a favorite.
Well, it was a spiritual experience, I'll say that.
So. Agreed. If there's another key that we can bring here, it's drink frosé.
That's right.
So great. Thank you so much for your points as well, and thank you for everyone who was attending this session. We would be happy to answer any questions that you might have if anything popped into your head. I see that a few are filtering in here, so I'm just going to go through a couple of them. So Hyatt, I believe this one is for you. It's related to PMS. Are you able to set restrictions with your staff as to what kind of access they have within this mobile PMS platform?
Yes, Valerie. So the way it works within our system, the permissions are very granular. You know, with, for example, you don't need a housekeeper accessing, you know, stay card information in most cases, versus a front desk agent. You want them to see the granular information when it comes to the guest profile that you're accumulating through all this fun texting and all this email connection and mobile check-in connectivity that you're doing. But you have the ability to granulate the permissions, right? So you can set profiles that have certain access points. You know, front desk can see the guest stay card, they can check a guest in, versus, you know, housekeepers, they can see the list of rooms that are assigned to them, you know, versus a revenue manager who has access to updating rates and things like that. So to answer the question, yes, you have full autonomy in terms of the access point or access levels per role in the hotel, and even on a multi-property standpoint, which we do have a lot of larger collections that use StayNTouch, where they have different layers or different segments of profiles, so you can get as granular as you want to.
Awesome. Let's see. All right, so we have a question here more about the integrations, which is great. So does your system have an open API in order to integrate with additional software currently in use? I know from a TrustYou perspective, with the products that we have, we do have an open API. So we are able to integrate with additional softwares. It's not just the ones that we partner with. Hyatt, do you know the answer from your side?
Yeah, so we do have a pretty fluid API model. What we do right now, since we are, the system is built on Ruby on Rails, which is the framework which allows us to be pretty flexible with the systems we connect with. We do have selectivity when it comes to the connections we make, but we are able to make those connections pretty quickly. So it's de facto open API, but it is something that we are actually evolving to, where we're going to be opening up a developer portal in the next couple quarters, where once we authorize a developer to go in, we're going to give them our script, and then they can make calls to our API based on the different segments of the PMS that they want to work with. So it's something that we are evolving to, and we do have the ability to connect to most of the modern cloud systems out there right now.
Awesome, great. So one, I think we'll probably make it our last question, and please feel free to still type in your questions if you have them. We also get the questions, attached to the person that logged in, so we can always email you afterwards if your question doesn't get answered. But to wrap things up, I think this is a great question, and it comes up often. It's regarding staff training. So how long does staff training take, and does it impact your bottom line revenue? So Hyatt, I'll let you take this one first, and then I can piggyback.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very important question that we get a lot when we're going through the onboarding process, or even the pre-sale process, right? Or right before someone partners with us, they want to understand how this is going to work and what the timelines are. So I think that for a system like StayNTouch, we have the ability to go at a pretty high velocity based on the availability of your staff, based on the kind of the person that's taking the project lead. It is a two-way street, and that's something that we found for the ones that are really successful and that are able to ramp up very quickly. They have someone who's committed to kind of monitoring the process, kind of going through the scope and sequence that they want to follow when it comes to the onboarding, and there's accountability there. With that said, with us, what we do is we try to work with the individual departments, and we break it up into kind of bite-sized sessions, like workshops, and it's interactive. So what we found is that if you involve the end user, right, you're going to see a higher adoption. You're going to see better momentum going into a new system, because if you just kind of push technology on somebody, then they may use it initially, but you won't see a true adoption of the system. So what we've done is we've made it very collaborative, with the project lead at the hotel or the hotel group. And then we actually, have interactive workshops remotely with the different departments: housekeeping, front desk, revenue management, financials, and we break it up to be, relevant for them. Because the worst thing, and I'm sure Valerie, you can relate to this, when we get a new software or something like that, or when you're involved in a meeting that you don't really need to be involved in, right? So it's something where we try to pinpoint who needs to really be involved at what point, and then come up with a plan, like basically a cutoff or cut over point for the hotel or the hotel group, excuse me, and then work backwards from there and say, okay, here's what needs to happen with housekeeping, here's what needs to happen with billing and financials, with credit card processing, here's what needs to happen with your interfaces, and just kind of map it all out, and then have kind of the actions around that identified, and assigned timelines. So that's a long-winded answer to the question, but the answer is, we can typically get a hotel onboarded within about 30 to 45 days. We just completed over 30 hotels in about 1 quarter for one collection. So again, it's really something that we can go as fast as you really want to go, and we'll help you kind of get there based on the timelines that are given to us.
Great, thank you. So I think from our perspective, definitely with PMS, this is going to require a lot of training. You guys obviously have systems in place that can handle that. I think from a standpoint of, because we get this question often about the guest messaging platform that we have and the onboarding with that, we typically get the response that they would need to hire staff in order to do this, and that's actually quite the opposite of what we want our technology to do. We actually want the technology to make the staff more efficient so that you don't need as many people. So I think that's the value that we try to bring. And I think our philosophy is always start slow. So you don't have to open up all lines of communication to every single hotel guest all at once. you know, kind of have the rehearsal before the big show. So you can only open it up to certain guests, you know, kind of beta test it within your hotel, see if it really does, you know, make you more efficient. And then as your staff becomes more comfortable with it, because that really is, you know, what it is that you just have to keep using it and get used to it before it really makes you more efficient. But once that happens, once they're more comfortable with it, then, you know, you can kind of open the floodgates. And while we say floodgates, I don't think it really is that many requests. I think especially with the automated outreaches and the proactive things that you can do with a tool like messaging, it actually prevents a lot of situations that you currently have with many different guests coming to you with the same issue or problem or question. So that would be my answer there. Let's see, doesn't look like we've had too many other questions roll in since then. So we will go ahead and get everyone back to their regularly scheduled program of the day. I want to thank Hyatt and StayNTouch for having this webinar with us, and we look forward to seeing you all on a future webinar. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Valerie. Great talking to you and to
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.